This is a Honda Navi. It's a little twist and go with a 110cc motor. It's got a choke, does not have a chain. You can hop on this bike and just go. And for the most part, I thought that was a pretty good thing until I actually tried to ride the motorcycle. As somebody who rides bigger bikes and more powerful bikes, the very first thing I noticed about this machine was how underpowered it was. And I could live with it for a little while, but then I got bored with it and tried to push it too far. And I think that's what most motorcyclists will end up doing on this machine. You see, the flaws of this bike are not that it's poorly made. It's made pretty well. It's well put together. It's relatively well thought out. It's pretty comfortable, but it's slow. The brakes aren't that good. It lacks a lot of the things I really look for. And so I find myself out beyond the edge of what this machine will do and getting myself into trouble. I end up in a dangerous place that I don't need to be in. For someone like me, this is the wrong bike. And I think for a lot of motorcyclists, this is not the machine you should have. And a lot of people might say, yeah, it's not aimed at you, Mike. It's aimed at people who are just getting started in their motorcycle journey, or people who are perfectly happy with the 45 or 50 miles an hour that this machine will realistically do. And that's okay, but that has flaws too. Let me explain. First, a little backstory. So Honda brought this machine to America around 2021. Maybe they had it in other markets in the world before that. I have no idea. Pitching it as the 1807 motorcycle, right? $1,807. Now, that doesn't account for dealer fees, setup, delivery, etc. So in reality, you're really looking at like $2,300 or $2,400 out the door with this machine from the Honda dealership brand new. So that changes that 1807 narrative a little bit when you consider what it will actually cost you to get this machine out the door of a dealership. But that's okay, that's normal for every motorcycle, I understand that. When you look at the percentage of that delivery and setup fee and the taxes you'll pay, like, it gets to be difficult to swallow how much of a percent of the total motorcycle cost that is coming from a dealer. So for me, that's a strike against this thing right off the bat. Now, if you're gonna buy a secondhand one, you avoid all that. Hey, this one's gonna be going on the market pretty soon because of all the things I'm talking about in this video. So you can find these things used. The air conditioner just went off, so the sound changed. Sorry about that. Let's say you can find a used one and you can get it for $1,800 or less than $1,800. Is it still a good bike to have? I mean, if you look at the features of this bike, it's quiet. Starts up relatively easy. You do have to choke it. It's got a petcock, so you do have to remember to turn your fuel on and off because it's got a carburetor. Getting to that carburetor is kind of a nightmare if you look at the side of the bike. But put all that aside and just assume it's going to work well because it's a Honda and that's a realistic expectation. It's got that neat little cargo box down on the bottom, low to the ground. It's relatively comfortable. It is extremely affordable on insurance. Hey, yeah, but you do have to register the bike, right? The bike will not start when the kickstand is down because it's a twist and go, right? And the back wheel wants to go. You can start it if the kickstand is up and you're holding the brake, or if you've got the e-brake on, put it on the center stand and it'll start that way while the brake's down. There are so many quirky things about this. That's another thing. Do you call it a motorcycle? Is it a scooter? It's somewhere in between. I don't really count it as a motorcycle because it doesn't have a clutch. It doesn't have shiftable gears. In the truest sense of the word, it's more of a scooter than it is a motorcycle. That's okay, that's fine. I've got nothing against scooters. I like scooters. This thing lives in that weird in-between space. But okay, back to this idea that Honda didn't really make a bike like this for someone like me, right? Who's who's riding 100 horsepower machines, off-roading, going on long road trips. They really made this bike for local travel, for around town or around campus or around the campsite, right? This bike is really meant for lower speed stuff, just pure people moving, not for exhilaration, and that's fine. So I have used this bike myself at a campground. Works great. I'm sure if you were using this to move around campus, that could work great. But there are some flaws in that too. As a college student, are you really gonna put on a helmet before going to class? I mean, unless you're just absolutely planning to wear a hat into class, because you're gonna have helmet hair if you wear a helmet. Are you gonna ride it when it's cold? Are you gonna ride it when it's raining? Is the relative lower cost of parking really worth it to ride this machine around? Or is it just a fun little toy? Because I have a hard time believing any college student is really going to use this machine a way to get to class. It just doesn't quite seem to line up for me. I think in some people's head, that idea might work really well. They see the $1,800 price tag, and by the way, $1,800, and if you don't already ride, you gotta go buy gear. You gotta buy a probably $200 helmet. I would recommend gloves. I would recommend a jacket. Are you gonna wear that in May when it's hot? Are you gonna wear that in August when it's sweltering? I just don't see it happening. Not only is it kind of questionable whether that use case actually plays out in real life for someone who thinks of it as college transportation or local transportation, but in America, in all the places that I've seen, once you get outside of the neighborhoods, it's 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, which to American drivers means 50 or more. And this thing will not, if you're going uphill, in my experience, this thing will not do 55 miles an hour. Best I could get was like 52 pegged. I don't think it's safe to be pushing this machine around at its absolute maximum speed on American roads where big SUVs are right next to you doing 50, 55, 60 miles an hour. Look, there's nothing wrong with the technical way it's made except for the fact that it just can't keep up. I guess the other thing that plays into that whole scenario is, as a motorcycle rider, I go practice. I go do cone drills. I go do stopping drills. I'm working on throttle control. I'm working on how quickly I can maneuver in and out of traffic. I'm constantly checking my mirrors for who's coming up behind me. I'm always looking for an exit strategy. Someone who's not calling in their head, calling themselves a motorcyclist and not taking being on two wheels that seriously is not looking for those things. If you're lost in La La Land and you're riding around on this machine, you don't have stopping power to quickly slow it down if somebody pulls out in front of you. And if you're not practicing swerving maneuvers, you're not going to be able to get out of the way. And even if you had been practicing, if you're not paying attention to where you're going to go next, if you don't always have a plan, it's not going to happen for you. You're going to end up on as a hood ornament. And I don't want that to happen for somebody. I hope if you're considering buying this machine and you're thinking it's going to be some magical, cheap transportation solution for you, you either account for reality that there's going to be cold days and there's going to be rain and hot and helmet hair, and more important than helmet hair, that's a big deal. More important than helmet hair is your safety, is being attentive to what is happening on the road. Maybe even especially around a college campus, because God knows how many of those kids are staring at their phone more than they are driving. I'm calming it down. I'm calming it down. There's the idea that this machine is safe is fine if it's just you on the road, if you're taking yourself seriously as a two-wheeled rider. But if you're not, then this machine seems like a bad idea. I don't think Honda made a bad machine. I don't know if Honda's capable of making a bad machine. When you combine the mentality that this machine encourages, along with the dangers of the road, that just seems to make for a bad combination. Now, I've been guilty of not wearing all my gear all the time. I'm not an ATGAT guy, okay? If this thing encourages me to wear short sleeves and shorts and flip-flops and no gloves, an open face helmet, what's it gonna encourage for somebody who doesn't know any better, who just thinks, it's not a real motorcycle, I don't need a helmet, or I never need gloves, or I never need closed-toed shoes. I can just wear whatever I want because I can't get hurt on this thing. It's too small to get me hurt. It's not powerful enough to get me hurt. Not only that, but I feel silly putting on all my gear, putting on my big jacket, and putting on my boots, and making sure I wear, but it's like the general vibe of this machine is just go have fun. Don't worry about safety. And I don't like that. Now, there is one thing about this machine that does really bug me when I go to ride it, and that is that the pegs are fixed. They don't, on a normal motorcycle, the pegs fold up. That's useful because when you lean the motorcycle over, if you scrape a peg, well, the peg is bending back up towards the bike. It's not something hard that catches on the pavement. The tires on this thing they're fine. They're not great, but I wouldn't expect great tires on it. The throttle control is okay because there's not enough power there to throw you out. The brake feel is spongy as all hell. They're just okay brakes. If you are gonna try to ride this machine with any sort of excitement, you're definitely putting yourself at risk. There's riding around, there's the dangers of the road, and that's one thing. But if you're a motorcyclist and you really know how to ride, and then you find yourself on this and you want to go push it, you're just way out past the realm of where you should be. Because if you scrape a peg on this thing, as I have done, it is so much more jarring than it is on a motorcycle with foldable pegs. And it's okay if you're riding around at 25 or 35 miles an hour and you're paying attention. I have a couple of recommendations. One is, of course, I'm recommending don't buy this. But what should you buy? Well, go buy a motorcycle if you want to do the two-wheel thing. Go get a little Royal Enfield 350. Plenty of good motors, and you can get a Honda CB 350. If you like Hondas, great, do that. That's a really good motorcycle. You're gonna pay more for it, but you're gonna be better off in the short term and the long term. Or get a Vespa, ride the scooter thing. Great, scooters, yes, good, okay? Nothing against scooters. I guess the other thing you could do in America is to get an e-bike. And for the price of this thing, if you go to electric, you can get their XP step through for like $1,300 with an extra battery right now. I don't know that much about e-bikes, but they also encourage people to not do things safely necessarily, to not wear a helmet, because it's a bicycle. I don't need to wear a bicycle helmet like a geek. You should wear a helmet. Always wear the helmet. But you could get an e-bike or two maybe instead of the price of this thing, because you don't have to register it, you don't have to pay tax, you don't have to have insurance. Maybe that's an option for you because you're really only looking at doing 25 or 30 miles an hour anyway. Sure, you got to pedal, but it's a bicycle and it folds up so you can carry it inside, under your arm. In some cases, people are terrified of a clutch and working gears, and it just is too much for their mind to handle all at one time. If that's you, then maybe this is a way to get started. Maybe. Maybe a better answer is to go to the MSF course. Take the basic MSF course and just get it. They will walk you through the friction zone on the clutch. They will walk you through how to change gears. They will walk you through what happens on the road, and you will be given a safe environment to go try out riding motorcycles without spending over $2,000. That's my recommendation. Do the MSF course. Then you get your motorcycle license. Along with that, you get the experience of riding on two wheels and you haven't burned $2,000. Until next time, ride safe.